In a video I dropped a year ago, I said about Zap Energy, a company with a relatively simple approach to generating power by fusing hydrogen into helium. This is a company I'll be keeping an eye on. As they recently announced a major pivot in their approach and a new CEO, I'd say it's time to talk about them again. If you look at most news outlets that are reporting on this, they just repeat what's in the press release or maybe a bit more detail from the company without questioning whether any of this makes sense. But their new stated strategy doesn't seem plausible to me. But I have a guess on what they're really trying to do. If you're interested in my theory, then join me in a discussion of a company that is facing up to just how hard nuclear fusion is. First, a quick reminder of their approach to harness the power of the sun by fusing two forms of heavy hydrogen into helium. While other companies use strong magnetic fields or intense lasers to achieve the unfathomably high temperatures and densities needed to mimic the conditions at the center of the sun, Zap has a very different approach. Their idea is to send a current of electricity stronger than a lightning bolt through a plasma to compress it by what's called the Z-pinch. This has been tried before and failed because instabilities in the plasma weakened the compression so that the hydrogen wouldn't fuse into helium. Their idea is to use shear flows to suppress the instabilities. For more details, like what shear flow means, you can watch my first video on Zap. They just released two pieces of news and, just as interestingly, haven't released news that was expected by now. The first news is that they have a new mission statement to develop an integrated nuclear future. Fission today, fusion tomorrow. Zap is announcing that we're building not just a fusion company, but an integrated nuclear platform that spans both advanced fission and fusion technology. Another brief aside for those who confuse fission and fusion, the two forms of nuclear energy. In terms of power plants, everyone to date has been fission, where you split uranium or plutonium, which releases a large amount of energy. When people talk about nuclear power, they almost always mean nuclear fission. There are many companies working on new fission power plants, some old and conservative like Westinghouse and the AP1000, and others young with next-generation designs like Oklo. I've covered many of these innovative companies in this playlist. At the moment, only Kairos and TerraPower are building nuclear power plants in the US. Combined, they'll deliver about 400 megawatts of power to the grid, less than 40% of the power from one of the large fission reactors like the AP1000s that were recently built in Georgia. Fusion, the power behind the sun, generates energy by combining or fusing heavy hydrogen into helium, which is very hard, but releases a huge amount of energy. The two leaders here are Helion and Commonwealth Fusion Systems, both of which have never generated net energy, but they claim they will have commercial power plants operating before the end of the decade. No legacy company like Westinghouse is working on fusion, and no company until now is working on both. Zap is claiming that they will continue working on fusion while also developing an advanced fission reactor. Their approach to fission is based on the Toshiba 4S reactor design. This reactor was never built. It's similar to the Natrium reactor that fellow Washington State company TerraPower is building, in that both use liquid sodium as the coolant. I'm highly skeptical of this approach, both the fusion and fission aspects. They've been working on their fusion concept for 9 years, and longer when you consider the work at the University of Washington. In 2022, they announced first plasma of their Fuse-Q device. In 2025, I lamented that they hadn't released data from this device, which was designed to achieve Q equals 1, the point where fusion energy generated equals the energy input into the plasma. A feat so far only accomplished at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory's National Ignition Facility. Achieving this is a major milestone on the path to reaching the densities and temperatures needed for a commercial fusion plant. It's been a year and they still haven't released any results from the Fuse-Q experiment. This suggests that they have not been able to control the plasma instabilities as well as they hoped, and the path to fusion is harder than expected. So they pivot to nuclear fission. There's no question that fission is less risky than fusion. Success in fission is taking well understood physics and implementing it in a way that results in a reactor that is safe and cheap. It's engineering. Success in fusion has so far been elusive. It's not just in engineering, but also science, and the engineering is much harder. In a GeekWire article about this pivot, they quoted Zap as saying, "Building next-generation fission technology is more predictable and would provide revenue sooner." Yes, given 20 years and $1 billion, there's a good chance that Zap would succeed in building their fission reactor. Even with infinite money and time, their approach to fusion might still fail. But they don't have 20 years or $1 billion. I'm not sure how much of the $330 million they've raised so far is left, but it's not nearly enough to design, much less build, a novel nuclear reactor. Zap says they hope to have a reactor delivering power to the grid in less than 10 years. The only two startups, Kairos and TerraPower, that have ever started building a fission reactor to deliver power to the grid have been around for 10 and 20 years so far, and they just started construction. As Zap has said, there's some overlap between fission and fusion, but it's not like a sax player learning the clarinet. It's more like a singer picking up the French horn. The singer knows how to read music and music theory, but that's about it. So it's just not plausible that Zap will meet their target. Zap's other big announcement is that they have a new CEO. Zabrina Johal is stepping into the role. She started her career as an officer in the nuclear navy, graduating from the well-regarded nuclear power school. So she actually knows more about nuclear engineering than many CEOs in the industry. She has an MBA and a PhD in organizational leadership and extensive experience and connections in the nuclear fission industry. So is she the right person to take on the challenge of navigating this pivot? I don't think so, because as I stated above, I don't think the pivot is plausible. But looking at her background, I think there are some hints about what Zap's plans actually are. And if I'm right, she might be a good choice to lead Zap at this time. One possibility is an Acqui-Hire, looking for another company in the nuclear space, fission or fusion, that has money and problems that Zap can help solve. They would acquire Zap not for IP or market share, but for the team. There aren't a lot of people with the skills that the people at Zap have, so just buying the team might make sense to the right company. Given that they are neighbors in the Seattle area, Helium or TerraPower would be possible targets for this approach. The other possibility is to partner with other companies while remaining independent. I don't think Zap will succeed in developing a full reactor, but I can imagine other nuclear companies might be interested in components or subsystems that are produced by Zap. The same skills that might make an Acqui-Hire attractive might also make a partnership possible. The challenge is they haven't succeeded in raising funds in 2 years, and I believe that their stated approach of building a liquid sodium-cooled reactor is unlikely to raise enough interest for a successful funding round. It's not clear how much cash they have on hand or how much time they have to create a reliable revenue stream. But if they're able to sign a partnership with another company, that might create the environment for a successful funding round. As I said on my first video on nuclear fusion, about all the companies trying to tap into the power of the sun, almost all of them will fail. So it's no shame on the team at Zap if they aren't successful. We should raise a glass to all who try to do the very difficult and important. I wish the Zap team luck on their pivot and all their future endeavors. So what do you think about my theory on what the future might hold for Zap Energy? What do you think they should do? Let me know in the comments. You can support this channel by buying me a pint or a YouTube thanks, or watch more of my videos on nuclear fusion. If you've learned something, please like and subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know who has had the joy of trying to do what they thought was impossible, whether they succeeded or not.